And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. If it's your first time plugging in with us, welcome. We appreciate you. Hit the like, the subscribe, all that good stuff. Share with your friends if you're finding the value. And if you're back for more, your family, we absolutely love you. Well, here's the thing. We started this podcast a few years ago. And a few months ago, we decided to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. You need to know what that step looks like. So we started this race spotlight series, and it's been a whole lot of fun. And you're going to see in this one, being from North Carolina, it's special to us. But Jeff, why don't you tell us what we're getting into tonight?
You see, I thought we were going to talk about a vacation destination race instead. But seriously, Doug, we are talking about a race that is tried and true to us. It's nearby to us. It is located in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and it is a home to 4 different islands and 12 coastal towns. And so if you've never been to the Outer Banks, it is on the barrier islands of North Carolina, and it will span the entire coast. So just a little bit more, to make it better, they are the home of a 100-mile race known as the Blackbeard's Revenge 100. It is a point-to-point race that takes runners the full length of the Outer Banks from up north in Corolla down south to Hatteras. And the course is 100% paved with absolutely stunning views along the way. You excited?
I am.
I can't wait to go on vacation with the Blackbeard folks. So no more waiting. Let's get into it. Joining us today is Priscilla Nobles and Richard Swor, the race directors for
Hey guys,
Blackbeard's 100.
Welcome to the show.
Guys. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, look, we're excited about this. We've had a handful of guests that have actually talked about this race on your show. And teaser, we've got a future guest coming up that just did very, very well.
She won
past year, yeah, winner. So anybody can look that up. But
Right.
Here's the thing: this show really is designed, if somebody's listening, to tactically know, hey, what should they know about your race, right? See if it's a good fit for them, and also if they're coming, what are the things that are important to hear about? So we're going to go through that kind of stuff. But one of the things we kind of love to know up front is, as the race directors, what is your favorite thing about the Blackbeard's Revenge?
So it's funny, you guys introed this as like a vacation destination. And so you would think that it would be the weather, but the weather is probably my least favorite thing about this race at that time of year. It is absolutely, it's one of the challenges of this race, and one of the more fun parts is the weather switches on no notice, and it's always interesting. It can be great or it can be horrible. But for me, I've been biking and running the Outer Banks for decades, and just bringing other people to that location. And we have a lot of beginners, a lot of people who have never done it before, seeing them accomplish something for the first time. And a lot of times it's athletes we've known for decades who never thought they would do a 100K or a 100-miler. But to see people out there just breaking down their barriers, and that's always the best for me. That's me. That's my top for sure.
Awesome. How about you, Priscilla?
I will say my favorite is similar to that. I like to find those people that I can just tell are working so hard and that just need that encouragement, and I just kind of follow them down the line. Rich knows I followed one lady for like 60 miles, and I was like, okay, I just go aid station to aid station, and I would meet her there along the way, and it was my turn to take a rest. And so Rich called me and he said, somebody's at the finish line and they had to talk to you right now. And so I got to video call her and talk to her when she crossed the finish line. So mine is being with my athletes down the way. And what a cool place to do that.
Fantastic. We're huge on community. It sounds like that's a big piece for you both, kind of the connection with the runners.
It's a unique, I don't know if it's so unique, but we get a lot of, pretty high-end ultra runners. Lee Whitaker's wins it most years, and he, doesn't slow down even for a second through each aid station. But at the same token, at the same start line, we get people dressed up as pirates running for, 30 hours, literally totally decked out in pirate gear, carrying fake swords and stuff, and just enjoying the weekend. So it's cool to see those at different ends of the spectrum, both sharing the start line and having a good time, and usually sharing, a drink or something afterwards.
You want to guess that that's Charlotte too, don't you?
I was gonna say, I'm sure Charlotte Couriers has been there in costume,
Yep.
getting it done.
The marathon costume chick is, I think, what her name is.
Well, so let's get this. We got a little bit of taste of this kind of before we were talking, but why don't you tell the listeners how long has the race been around? And then on top of that, why do you think it is that you just mentioned Lee? Why do you think it is that people keep coming back?
So I'll start out. We've been producing the race since 2019, but I would say there's a legacy event before us. There was a race director who used to produce the Graveyard 100, same course, not necessarily the same philosophy. We have a lot more aid stations, and not bad or good. We just slightly different races. And that's kind of how we got into it. When that race no longer existed, I was a coach, and I had several athletes who really wanted to do the race, some that were already training for it. And, a couple years down the line, we just kind of got the idea that this is a place we love. I had family who lived on the Outer Banks long before it was a tourist place. We visit there all the time. And we decided, not only is it a place we know and love, but we have athletes already that want to do this, and we wanted to see them accomplish it. So actually the first year we did it, one of my athletes who had been in a horrific car accident, lost his heel, had 5 vertebrae in his back, fused, wasn't supposed to walk again. He raced it and completed the 100-mile. And that was, part of that is the main, you guys should talk to John sometime, but it was part of that was the experience for me was getting him across that finish line, because that was one of his goals. But yeah, so it's been around for us since 2019.
Lost his heel.
Yeah,
that went through this. That went through the brake pedal. That's how he was a drunk driver, hit him on his way to a triathlon.
Oh my gosh! Wow. All right, we could definitely get wrapped up there, but we're not. We're going to keep.
No, we'll move forward.
Focus, yeah.
We're going to keep moving forward. That's right.
I want to talk all about it.
Okay, so for everybody listening, we just heard some, one, you talked about the weather can be kind of unpredictable. It sounds like it's in a beautiful area, but why should somebody consider running this race?
Priscilla, why don't you go first, and I can fill in.
So I'll start with, I'm not an ultra runner. I'm getting there, but the thought of it blows my mind. The people that I see just completely blow my mind. For some people, I think when I think ultra, I think trail, and it's not trail, so it's paved. So I feel like it's a good for the people who really love the road. It's straightforward. It's flat. Those can be great for some people, and those can not be so great for some people. It is, when I think it's beginner friendly, because every 5 to 8 miles you have an aid station. You're always going to see someone. We are constantly driving down the road. I can't tell you how many times we stop on the side of the road and just talk to every single person, especially at night. Like, you okay? All right, great. I'll drive to the next person. I know how well it's supported. So to anyone, especially beginner who's kind of scared to take the step, I say, you're going to be so supported and so well taken care of. Why not?
That's great feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I agree with Priscilla on a lot of that. Our goal is the athletes the entire time. We want to see you finish as much as you want to see you finish. And so we have 10 staff on race day, and their entire job is not even to be at aid stations, but to float around and check on athletes. That's beyond the volunteers at the aid stations and at the finish line. And we're constantly revamping with feedback from athletes, constantly modifying aid stations, adding to that, and trying to make them better, make the course better. It has a very lenient cutoff time, again, trying to make the race accessible and good for everyone, with a 5:30 start and a 1:30 finish, 1:30 p.m. the next day finish. We're trying to make it so everyone has that opportunity to do that race. And we also, one of the main reasons we have the 100K, besides making another opportunity to race this race without being ready for the 100, is it adds people to the course, so it's not as lonely out there. It's an opportunity to see something you don't get to see much. And I think, I don't know, I guess Priscilla's on the right, is right. It's mostly about that that it's well taken. Athletes are well taken care of in this.
Yeah, I think it's good that you guys have both mentioned the idea of how it's athlete centric and how you're focusing on taking care of the athletes. Because if I'm running this event, or if somebody who's considering running the event, to kind of first hear that it's point to point paved road, from one end of the Outer Banks to the other end, 100 miles is an easy way to get separated from a lot of people. And to hear that you guys, you two are the race directors. There's also two other additional race directors. So there's 4 race directors that rotate through the event, that are driving up and down the road really to make sure runners in between are being supported as well. So I think it's good to hear that for those who are concerned about a point-to-point type 100, because it is rare. Most 100s are some sort of loop course and everything, and so it's a little bit more contained. This is pretty spread out. The other thing, though, I do want to switch over a little bit. We've talked about it a couple of times or mentioned it, is the weather. And it is important because I've been to the Outer Banks a couple of times when it has been February, March timeframe. I've been to Bald Head, which is a barrier island down here, same time of year. And I don't want to ruin it for you, but can you kind of give an idea of what the temperature extremes can be, and even what the wind can be like, and not just a gust, but like a headwind?
Yeah. So we've had the original reason we went south to north is north to south is that time of year we're supposed to get a good tailwind for the majority of the race, and that's happened. Oh, I think twice out of all the years we've produced it, we've gotten good side wind and headwind, and you don't get a choice. And the problem is you're on barrier islands. There isn't anything between the ocean and you. If there's wind, there's wind.
Mm-hmm.
But in the morning, especially the last couple of years, been very peaceful, low wind, and you get kind of ahead of it a bit. This last year we had a good amount of tailwind, which was great. But temperature extremes can be, we've started in the 30s, and we've definitely had 70s and humid, and that's a huge swing. And that's, again, as director, having 4 race directors, we like to be able to pivot quickly and have add ice towels to aid stations and things like that when we know it's going to be warm. So we're trying to make sure that the next step, the next aid, all you have to do is make it to the next aid station, you'll be taken care of again. But I give you the most extreme version of this. I believe it was 2021. We had what was a beautiful day, and the storms were not really supposed to get us. And we got everyone basically over the bridge. We had one group that hadn't made it over the halfway bridge last night, and a storm came through that was just treacherous, like inches of rain an hour. And at the finish line, there was a water spout. My wife called and said that there was crushed up seashells being rained down through the tent. When we got to the finish line, there was actually a layer of seashells, which was not supposed to be there. And it was like that is happening. And then, we got back to the race. We actually paused everyone for a few and tried to take them under shelters and brought them back to where they could be. We had everyone out everywhere, but there are weather extremes on the Outer Banks, and they come out of nowhere. So you really have to be prepared for anything. We tell athletes, if you get out, it wouldn't be an ultra if it was just easy. And that, like Priscilla said, flat doesn't mean easy. Resort town areas doesn't mean it's easy. There are extremes and difficulties in every race.
So here's a couple takeaways for me. Is you mentioned it's beginner friendly because great support. It's a flat course. You've got 32 hours, if I did my math right. I was trying to do math quick in my head, right? But 32-hour cutoff. And it sounds like, a good training strategy would be do a lot of treadmill miles and have a spouse or friend throw seashells and water at you.
A minimum.
Just
turn the fan on high blast once you start to get tired at the end.
So yeah. But this is always, and there's been a few races we've talked to, especially kind of in this spring time frame, right? Because a lot of us are coming from colder temperatures,
right?
I mean, North Carolina. So you're in Michigan. I'm not going to talk to you about cold temperatures, right? But
yeah.
But it can be, to your point, coming out of the cold, and you may have something hot, and you're not used to that. So I think that's just a point to take if you're listening. Kind of know that it's almost expect the unexpected. And luckily you've got 32 hours to kind of deal with any situation that the course throws at you.
And we have 4 drop bags, 3 on the course and 1 at the aid station for the 100-mile. So the ability to change equipment as the temperature swings happen is available. And obviously a lot of people are crewing the race anyways, but we do try to make sure that, okay, the morning was cool and cold, but it's warming up. I need to drop this stuff. So, having the additional drop bags, we're hoping helps out a lot of people. And that, again, if you're planning correctly, you should have the right stuff in those bags to help you get through. Yeah.
So we just talked about a whole lot of stuff, but I'm interested. What do you think? Because so somebody may be listening and go, flat, got it, might be a little windy or something, but sounds like a pretty easy race. They'll take care of me. What do you think that runners could potentially underestimate about this race?
Priscilla, I have two things. I'll let you go first so I don't steal yours.
One would be the humidity or heat. Rich and I are big preachers on not taking in enough salt. Like, you can drink water all day, but we're going to take you off the course because you didn't take in enough salt. So
No.
I think there's no shade. It is straight sun.
Mm-hmm.
You're in 100 miles of sunshine. So how much the sun depletes you is really the heat in the sun, for me, I think, is what people don't understand, that you are there all day in that.
Real quick before we jump over to you, Rich. So are there recommendations for somebody coming? I mean, obviously, I would imagine sunscreen, hat, sunglasses, some things like that to kind of combat, but are there any tips that if somebody's listening, they should know maybe to prepare better for the sun?
Between the sun and the salt and sand, lots of Body Glide or whatever their preference is of non-chafing things. So we don't have sunscreen at our aid stations because we're not allowed to do that, but our crew always has sunscreen in their car. So if you are in trouble and you're coming to our race, you're like, I'm scorching, all you have to do is flag us down, and we will happily say, we're not supposed to do this, as I sunscreen you down. I'll do whatever you need.
No.
I see a lot of SPF shirts, a lot of hats, a lot of cold towels that people like, the wrap towels that they covered their necks with. Lots of different things like that seem to work, all in your tolerance of clothing and what you like to wear.
Good tips.
There's also, and I agree, Body Glide, sunscreen, correct clothing, also pacing. You know that you're going to have some cooler hours in the morning, and then if you're going into the evening, which most of us will be into the night, you are going to have some cooler time there. It's knowing that all you have to do is get to that sundown and you're going to get some relief, and taking it easy. We get a lot of, so we do see a lot of hyponatremia, and we do see a lot of dehydration, more hyponatremia, like Priscilla was saying, than dehydration. But what we see more is just mentally beat up. And we try to get to athletes and, take 10 minutes. Any seasoned ultra runner will tell you that if you can get through those 10 minutes of sorrow, you can probably keep going, and you're going to have a couple of those opportunities to test that on the race. But if you're pacing yourself well and you're keeping in mind that, it's a long day, but I can get through it, you'll do better. The two things I had, one is it's going along with that, with the mental end of it. If it's evening, you can see the Hatteras lighthouse, and you think, oh gosh, I'm almost at Hatteras. This is great. I'm almost in Buxton when Hatteras is just around the corner, and that lighthouse is still 20 plus miles away because it's dead flat, and it's just this lighthouse in the distance. And so mentally it's hard to, and you see, one electric pole after another, and at night the scenery doesn't change because it's just a white line you're following. So mentally it's a very tough race. You're not doing the 1 mile loops, so it's not seeing the same thing, but it's also, there are times there isn't much to see other than sand. And along that route, the thing that I think we try to let people know when we do our pre-race athlete meetings, we do our virtual meetings in the months leading up, and it's still a 2-lane highway road. And sometimes when the wind's not blowing, most of the time there's a good shoulder. And then sometimes the wind blows and you have to go out into traffic. It's not that busy. It's busy enough though that you're going to get stressed out by some of those cars because it is a road. In towns, there are sidewalks and greenways, but in between towns, especially the second half of the race, there's less of that, which it's because it's more remote. But that's the part you got to be prepared for, is just the frustration that we have. signs out there for people saying, race in progress. We have the big electronic billboard signs that say race in progress. And we do let people know ahead of time through different media means that there's a race, but cars are cars and they're going to be out there, and it's obviously an open course.
I think it's great for people to know so that they can go in eyes kind of wide open with that's part of the experience.
I wouldn't open them all the way unless you have the sunglasses. That sand in the wind would be, I would eyes slightly squinted.
So let's assume that my wife is going to crew me for your race. Yeah. And you guys have talked about the fact that as race directors, you drive up and down the course and you check on runners as they're going. Are there rules for crew on accessing the runners? Can they only do that at aid stations, or are they doing that along the course?
So they can access them at aid stations or along the course. They cannot, they can't pace them. So they can't sit there with a bike or a car and hand them gear while it's moving. They have to be in a stop position. But there are certain places on the course, there are very few where they can't stop for them because we've gotten that's all in the athlete guide and the spectator guide, but the national park has said, no, you can't stop in this area, but it's pretty well spelled out and very limited where that is. But again, we allow pacers from the very beginning. We allow crew to have access. Again, we're trying to make this as achievable as possible without literally, you being in a vehicle being carried along. We want you to accomplish your goals, and none of these things seem above and beyond. They just seem like what should be fair for someone trying to do something crazy.
I think
it's a really good race to have crew, because every aid station has somewhere for them to park. If it's not at the aid station, it's close to the aid station. We have a lot of people when the runners come in, like, can I help you? And I just run into my crew. Okie dokie, I'll just check you in. You go right to your car. A lot of crew, and it's awesome to see, because now I spend not just all day cheering for you, but I was cheering with your family. Now we're all invested in you as a runner. So it's really cool to watch, because it's an awesome crewable race.
That's great.
So we've kind of touched on, you mentioned the aid stations. It sounds like they're not too far apart. You've got the drop bags that people can plan for. The crew is very accessible. I think we've covered the majority of it, but what can somebody expect at an aid station? So if they come rolling up to an aid station, what do you have? What do you offer? What do you not offer? Like, what should people know there?
Sure. So, I'd say we've been learning this year in and year out. We try to meet with athletes. In fact, we'll have another athlete meeting where we'll ask them to review our aid stations and make sure that there's nothing we're missing, because we're lucky enough that it's me and my wife that run the company, and Priscilla and Becky, who are, great race directors. We can change anything on a dime if it helps. We never take anything away, but we're willing to add. But every aid station will have water and tailwind and a porta potty. We try to have something salty and something sweet at every single aid station. And depending on the weather changes, hot or cold, depending on what's going to be more useful. So to give you an example, aid station 11, I'm just looking at one: water, tailwind, Coke, ginger ale, quesadilla, cheese quesadillas, clementines, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, salt tablets, and Huma gels. 7 is water, tailwind, Coke and ginger ale, boiled potatoes and salt, raisins, fig bars, gummy bears, popcorn, salt tablets, and Huma gels. And just pick one more: water,
it's like
tailwind,
a buffet.
Coke. Yeah. I'll say this: it's not going to be the same as something like Uwari, where there's 2 aid stations and they have a chef out there. It's awesome. You can just cook to order, because we have 18 aid stations and it's point to point. We try to make sure there's something for everybody, and that we have what everyone needs. And we've tried to add to it every year as we learn more what the athletes are asking for. But also it's available online from the get-go, so they can plan accordingly, which I think that's really important. Instead of just saying, we see a lot of sites that say there's some of this stuff, these are the kinds of things you might see at some of the aid stations. We're going to say that this is at what's at aid station 9. And that means the athletes can train knowing that this food is available, and, oh, this isn't available. I should have this in my drop bag at 2 because I know I'll want this myself. That's kind of the goal with this, is to make it hopefully everything you need. But if not, ahead of time what we've got.
That's fantastic, because a lot of times it can be hit or miss. And so if you're listening, I think you just said something really important. If you really want it or need it, then plan to have it yourself. However, you can look at the specific aid stations and know. And it sounds like, tell me if I'm right or wrong, but I would imagine if I think 18 aid stations on a 100-mile course, I could probably get away with handhelds if I didn't want to wear a pack all day, because I'm not running 15 miles in between or something like that. Fair to say?
I would say yes. And I'll give you, early on when we put on this race, I don't think our aid stations were as stocked or as visible. We had similar stuff, but not as much. We've really beefed them up in the last couple of years, especially this year. And I think some athletes who went uncrewed were struggling. So we made a concerted effort over the last 2 years to really beef up aid stations and make sure that information's always been available. We want to make sure that we push it to people so they can see it. And we still always ask people to tell us what we can add if there's something that they don't see. So you're going to see it. And I'll tell you this, because of all the sand and wind, we've had to get creative, because we're going to actually have pictures of the food on the table, because we can't put all the food out there or else it just gets destroyed. So now people are like, I didn't see much there. So we're actually going to place images of the food on the table so that it can be kept cold or warm and not sandy, and also available in case of those extremes if they do happen. But it's our A1 goal this year and last year to make that a race that you can go station to station with a handheld and be okay.
I like that idea. It's true. That kind of stuff will get sandy fast.
It's a gritty grilled cheese. But
I mean,
Well, I was just gonna say, I'm very impressed with. It sounds like your willingness to listen, make the changes, and the fact of just putting the pictures out, because people were missing out on opportunities because they couldn't see it. Like, I don't think every race director would necessarily take the same action. Hopefully it would, but it says a lot about you guys. So
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, at least two of your race directors for this race, and they're both on the video call, are neurotic and get really anxious and hate seeing negative feedback. So this is kind of, it's more for us than for the athletes. We can't handle
fix
the
that problem. I don't want to get that.
Fix it real quick.
We will fix it.
So it's a lot of our friends and family doing the race, and so we get a lot of feedback anyways. But the last thing we want to see is the last thing we see any of the races we produce is to hear that somebody didn't make it, not because they weren't capable, but because they weren't given enough direction, or they weren't given enough aid, or they didn't get enough information prior to the race to make a good decision on what to do. So that's it's our community. We want to make sure that everyone's coming in ready to go and having the best possible experience.
Love it.
So I do everything for the food. So the one thing that I also do at the aid station is, like, coming up next, like, we have aid station menu boards that we put the menu out like before you get to the aid station. So if you're bored as hell, you can read it on your way. And I'll always tell them, like, in their aid station notes, at the next aid station, there's going to be cheese quesadillas or meat sandwiches, because we have like meat and cheese sandwiches or whatever, so that they know, oh, in 5 miles, I get to run to a sloppy Joe. Like, in my mind, that's what's most important. I get to run to the next food.
That sounds like the answer to the mental challenges you were talking about earlier, of just like seeing light poles. Instead, I'm thinking about that quesadilla for the next 5 miles.
Right?
What's the next?
I mean, I don't know. I like the idea that as you're approaching an aid station, however far out, to be able to see what's available, like on a menu board. I know we're kind of laughing about it, but I've thought about being in race before. Like, what am I going to do when I get to the aid station? What do I need to try to get? And to start knowing the options before I get there is fantastic.
I wish it was not our idea. This is, again, an athlete suggested to us maybe 5 years ago with one of our other ultras. And we do it with all the ultras we produce, because it, like you said, it's something you can joke around about, but it is useful.
It's very useful.
It's one of the things we talk about on the show, is have a plan going into an aid station, right? Because it's very easy to, one, waste time, and two, kind of mentally spin out of control depending on what. So having that plan before you get in, it sounds like you're setting up your athletes very well to do that, at least from a nutrition standpoint. So
that's awesome.
Cool.
The race is going to be taking place on March 23rd, I believe, of this year. Is it always the 3rd or 4th weekend of March?
It is, until someone from one of the counties or one of the cities, national parks, state parks, tells us we can't.
And if anybody is still looking for a last minute 100 miler, because again, this is going to be coming out this upcoming weekend. It's only a couple months away. Maybe hard to pull that off, but are you still taking runners at this point?
We're still taking runners, and we also, if you're willing to volunteer in an aid station, we're also giving away free entries because no one knows what an ultra runner needs at an aid station like an ultra runner.
Awesome. So if they're listening and they want to volunteer, maybe run it in 2025, they could come volunteer this year and then run it in 2025. That's fantastic.
See what the course is like.
Yeah.
Get it again. Yep. So.
And you guys are on Run Sign Up, correct?
We are.
So
Yes.
I'm assuming they're able to go there for volunteer information as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Okay.
And we'll put all that information in the show notes.
Yep.
Thank you.
So one question, because we haven't mentioned it and it didn't come up in underestimating, but we've heard it from similar courses. Do people struggle with just how flat it is? Do you see runners getting worn out by the flat running? A lot of times people can underestimate that.
Yes. I mean, the short and long answer is yes. You're using the same muscle groups over and over and over again, and the only breaks are when you go over a bridge, and those are few and far between. So it takes special training to do a flat 100-miler, and that's when you see guys that run straight through the entire time, and guys and girls. We've had overall female winners as well, but to see them go through and nonstop through an aid station and keep those legs churning like that, it means that they must have done some very specific flat ground cement training to not wear down quickly.
Or they live where we live, because that's all we have.
True. Very flat here.
But I think
you should run that.
Yeah, I should. But I think it's important. And if for everybody that's been listening for a long time, they're probably like, got it, we got it. It can be tough to run flat. But this is where we've talked a lot on episodes, so you can go check it out. Walk, run intervals. There's definitely some tactics, I think, to tackle a flat course. We don't need to go into it here. But I just wanted to bring up that point that everybody says, oh, flat equals easy. Well, there can be challenges that come along with that as well. So plan for that.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's what I got.
Well, look, guys, this has been super exciting for us, and I think it's huge value to anybody that's listening that is, looking for that run and is going to consider Blackbeard's Revenge. A lot of great information. Again, I'm really impressed with the intentionality that you have for the runners, especially for somebody maybe taking on their first or, isn't sure if they can do this. It sounds like a great opportunity for them to jump in and give it a shot.
I agree 100%.
So I'll say thank you to you guys. But before we say bye, I'll talk to our listeners and viewers. Thank you so much for taking the time again. If you are finding the value, just share with your friends. That's how we grow. We appreciate it so much. We'll make sure all the links and everything are in the description so that you can get all the information. But to both of you, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Happy running.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk soon.
God. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.